I want to begin with a confession. And that confession is that this afternoon, in front of you, standing here, is a particularly moving event for me. But why should it be moving? Why should it be moving for a journalist like me who spent a decade doing this sort of stuff, talking to people? Because that's what journalists do, right? We talk to people. Often we don't know what we're talking about. We still keep talking. But today is different. Why is today different? Today is different because it's a special occasion to talk to what? 1,000, 1,200 people sitting here? More maybe? Somebody in the audience said more. Sitting here waiting for them to, or waiting for me to talk to them. It's a special occasion. Why? I'll tell you why. Because I am the first generation in my family who was educated in the English language. And the fact that I stand here before you, ladies and gentlemen, today, to talk to you in the English language, to talk about books that I've written in the English language, to express myself in the English language, that to me is a special journey, and it has been a special journey. I told my father is 70, I told my father that I was coming to Hyderabad to talk about entrepreneurship. And I told him, Bengalis are bad at entrepreneurship. We're not good at entrepreneurship. We don't understand it. We think of it as business. We think of it as dhanda. We've always been bad at it. Why are we not better at entrepreneurship? You know what my father told me? My father looked at me. He's 70 years old. He's about to retire as a government officer. Unfortunately or fortunately, as an honest government officer. My father looked at me and said, "You are my entrepreneurial project." That's why it's important for me to stand here, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why I thank you, each one of you, from the bottom of my heart, for having me here this afternoon. Entrepreneurship. What is this beast called entrepreneurship? What is this beast that people pay thousands and thousands of dollars to go and study in universities where you actually can, for free, download the entire course material from your internet connection sitting at home? What is this beast called entrepreneurship? We've been told a lie. Speaker after speaker before me has spoken about the truth. Let me begin with a lie. We've been told a lie about entrepreneurship. We've been told entrepreneurship is about balance sheets. We've been told it's about a triple-barreled bottom line, whatever beast that may be. We've been told entrepreneurship is about pesa. And I'm here to tell you that entrepreneurship is not about any of those things. What is entrepreneurship about? Let me give you an example. I have a friend called Chandrabhan Prasad. Chandrabhan Prasad is, and because we are the country we live in, Chandrabhan Prasad is often described as India's foremost Dalit economist. Every time I hear that phrase, it makes me angry. I propelled Fortune India to drop that phrase, Dalit, from Dalit economist. To me, Chandrabhan Prasad is one of the foremost economists in this country. But in our media, he's also always called a Dalit economist. So I have a friend called Chandrabhan Prasad. Why am I talking about Chandrabhan Prasad? Because about 3 or 4 years ago, Chandrabhan Prasad and a bunch of other people from Harvard, because of course, unless you say Harvard and Stanford, no study is relevant in India, right? Because how can any study done by us be relevant, right? So yes, Chandrabhan Prasad also got a bunch of people from Harvard to do a study. What did that study show, ladies and gentlemen? It showed a very important thing. It actually studied 2 portions of a state called Uttar Pradesh, right? I live next to Uttar Pradesh in Delhi, so I know a little bit about Uttar Pradesh. But anyway, so it showed 2 places in Uttar Pradesh. What did those places have? It tried to study what happens, right? What happens to the life of a Dalit after 2 decades of liberalization? What changes, right? Why is it that the great dream of socialism couldn't change? What can liberalization change that socialism couldn't change, right? And it studies this 19,000 people from 2 parts of Uttar Pradesh. It's a very interesting study. You know what changes after 2 decades of liberalization? The first statistic I read was that the purchase of shares rises significantly after 2 decades of liberalization. Now you would ask, why are we concerned about, essentially poor Dalit people in Uttar Pradesh buying chairs? What on earth does that have to do with entrepreneurship? Let me tell you, a chair is a significant thing. That kursi all of you are sitting in, it's a very important thing. Why? Because in the places where this study was done, Unch Neech, for everybody who follows Hindi here, is not just something in your head, ladies and gentlemen. It's not something that you imagine and theorize about. It is something that's literally on the ground, in front of you. There is a Uch and there is a Neech. And when anybody used to go to a home of a Dalit, if they were upper caste, the chair was always for them, because the Dalit always sat on the floor. Because how dare they sit on anything which is not Nietzsche from the Uch Jat. But then liberalization magically changes things. What changes, you would ask? What changes with liberalization? I will give you more statistics about what changes with liberalization, but let me tell you a story first, because I'm basically a storyteller. In Azamgarh, in Uttar Pradesh, my friend Chandabhan Prasad is talking to a Bhumiyar leader, an upper caste landed gentry leader, right? And the Bhumiyar leader is really upset. Here's a man who's very upset. And he says, Chandabhanji, it's a new world and I don't like it. He says, why don't you like this new world? What's wrong with the new world? You're making more money, hopefully. He said, no, आजकल माहौल ठीक नहीं है, मौसम ठीक नहीं है. The weather is not good, as it were. A bit like India and Pakistan. The weather is not good. Why is the weather not good? Because पहले क्या होता था, what used to happen earlier is when a poor agrarian Dalit laborer who used to work in the fields of the landed gentry, the Bhumiyar, that man or that woman, when they had a little celebration at home, would come to the Bhumiyar leader and say, "Aaj hamare ghar mein tyohar hai. We have a little celebration in our house. Ek murgi de dijiye. Please give us a chicken so that we too can literally feast on flesh." And benevolently, because all masters in India are benevolent, right? Benevolently, the Bhumiyar leader, the Bhumiyar master, would pick up the scraggliest beast from the pen and give it to the Dalit, right? 20 years of liberalization happens. And this conversation is happening. And the Bhumiyar tells Chandrabhan Prasad that आजकल माहौल बदल गया है. आजकल क्या होता है? What happens these days is, सोचिए ये कोई लड़का या लड़की, a young Bhumiyar, a young Dalit boy or girl who doesn't want to work under the Bhumiyar in the fields anymore, quickly goes to the city, to the neighboring town, to whatever urban space which is growing that he has or she has access to, right? And he says, वो फिर वापस आते हैं, they come back to the village, right? और जब वापस आते हैं, तो हमारे सामने से मुर्गी का गर्दन पकड़ के फरफराता हुआ चला जाता है. And Chandrabhan Prasad says, in that one statement, that a Dalit is able to take a chicken on a motorbike in front of the upper castes in a village in Azamgarh is a knife into the heart of the upper castes. It's a dagger that goes in and, it sort of twists itself. That's how caste is broken. I always say that the biggest tragedy of this country, and a tragedy we will never recover from perhaps, is that we always remembered Baba Saheb Ambedkar, the reformist, but by God we forgot Baba Saheb Ambedkar, the economist. By God we forgot him. And that's the tragedy of the country. Read Ambedkar's Economics. Here is a man who fought to keep the word socialism away from our constitution. Not because he hated it, mind you. He believed that truly in a democracy, people have a choice. People must choose not just the politics that governs them, but the economics that changes their life. Because, ladies and gentlemen, without economics, there is no politics. All politics is at its heart economics. That's what liberalization and that's what entrepreneurship is. That's what entrepreneurship is to me. It's not about a balance sheet, and by God, I've seen more balance sheets than I can, dream of in my life. But it's not about that. It's about change that affects people like this. Let me give you another story. Remember that Dalit boy or girl we were talking about who comes back in a motorcycle, takes the chicken? Let's move to another karma bhumi, so to speak, another ecosystem of that boy or girl. What happens in the city to them, right? What happens to a boy or girl from a lower caste family who has never had access to the urban life, who comes to a city and maybe gets, a job? What kind of job? Maybe he gets a job or she gets a job as a pizza delivery person, right? Now here's another interesting story. What happens when they get this pizza? Just a hypothetical situation. Just one hypothetical situation among hundreds and hundreds. Let us assume just for a second that they get a pizza delivery boy's or girl's job. Imagine the moment with me for a few seconds here, ladies and gentlemen. That boy or girl comes in the morning to wherever they work and they put on a uniform and an order comes in via telephone and they get up on a moped, put a box of pizza behind them and they go to a home. Maybe that home is, again, hypothetically, maybe it's in Gurgaon in Delhi. Maybe it's in, outskirts of Hyderabad. Maybe it's in Bangalore, wherever it is, right? And they go to an apartment block, let's say, right? They go up the elevator, ring the bell, the door opens. Most likely the customer is talking on the phone, as customers tend to. And the customer, with only half their mind paying attention to this whole process of buying pizza, pays the money, takes the box, slams the door shut. It's something all of you may have done, once, twice, 100 times, I don't know. How many of you have ever thought about the significance of that moment for the person who's come to deliver that good service or pizza, especially if it's pizza or anything to do with food, if they're from the lower castes? Because as my friend Chandravhan Prasad says, in that moment, when with one hand on the phone, the customer takes out the money and gives the money and takes the delivery of pizza, in that one moment when the two fingers meet, like in Renaissance paintings, right? That's when magic happens. That's when, ladies and gentlemen, the dreams of Ambedkar and of Adam Smith come together. And it comes together like never before. Because that's the moment which transforms minds. And to me, entrepreneurship is not about anything else. It's about the freedom that you get in your mind. I am here today standing before you because I write and read and speak in the English language. And God knows, and I'm happy to say this, even 10 years ago in this country, a person like me could not publish a book in the English language because everybody knew in Delhi to publish a book in the English language, your father or grandfather had to have played golf with somebody, had to be best friends with somebody else. That was what English language publishing was in this country. That has changed. And that's why I believe in entrepreneurship. That somebody like me, who's the first generation ever to be educated in the English language, gets a transformative opportunity to today stand here before you. That's entrepreneurship. That's the power of entrepreneurship. And that we have broken these doors and we continue to break them every single day of our lives, and that we are committed to breaking these doors every single day of our lives. That's entrepreneurship. I'll tell you what entrepreneurship is. When I first came to Delhi, I realized what entrepreneurship is. Because, Delhi, the city, as mega cities tend to be, every city has a tick. Have you noticed that? In London, for instance, the tick of that city is you never look at anybody in the eye in the London Underground, right? For everybody who's been to London, you know that. You're not supposed to look them in the eye. You're not supposed to look at your co-passenger in the eye, right? In New York, of course, it's all about speed. Do you know what is the tick of Delhi? What is the unique tick of Delhi? It's the act of closing doors. Darwaza band kar dete hain hum. The moment people get in, they close the door. Like the moment I have spoken at Manthan Samvaad, I will go and tell everybody else who wants to speak here, no, you mustn't go there. It's not that good, That's the act. And it's not just in Delhi. Across India, ever since independence, the elite of India has closed the doors on everybody else. In city after city, in town after town, the doors have been shut. And today, entrepreneurship opens those doors. I believe in entrepreneurship because it opens those doors. Entrepreneurship allowed voices apart from the elite voices of this country to actually bring a narrative of their own lives onto the pages of a book, onto the pages of newspapers and magazines. I used to think about this. I wrote a book called The Liberals, and Meghnad Desai, the British economist, read it and said, there are two kinds of children in our country, right? One is midnight's children of the midnight. The other, he said, were Manmohan's children. Because with 1991, I'm a post-1991 generation, right? I mean, my political memories of India are from post-1991. Why is that different? Why is that significantly different? It's significantly different not because of per capita GDP, and everybody talks about per capita GDP. I don't care about per capita GDP. You know what's the difference? The difference is something I call per capita hope. It's not the fact that I've reached there. It's the fact that I can even dream about reaching there. If you ask my parents, even 10 years ago, that their son would be invited to speak at the Howard Club in Manhattan, they would say it's not possible, it's not for people like us. You know, in Delhi I heard, in Bombay I heard that people like us was a cool thing, you know? Like people like us were the cool elites. I also heard of people like us when I was growing up in Calcutta. And that people like us was the people like us born out of fear. Because our parents consistently told us, this is not for us. People like us don't do it. Politics is not for us. Business is not for us. Anything that involves any risk is not for us because we can't afford to take risks. But that's the power of liberalization and entrepreneurship, that it has given us per capita hope. That each one of you, each one of us, it doesn't matter where you've reached. What matters is that you can dream about reaching somewhere. That act itself is the most powerful. It was Barack Obama who famously said, we are the ones we've been looking for. We are, ladies and gentlemen, truly the ones we've been waiting for. This is that moment. You keep asking, where is the moment of India? This is that moment. Let me give you another example of entrepreneurship, right? And let me give you this example from another issue very close to my heart. A woman I care deeply about and I had a conversation, right, with a couple of other friends. And that conversation went up to this point where we began to talk about how Indian men are okay if their wives work today, you know? They're okay if their wives work today. It's a great progressive move forward, right? They're okay, you know, they're happy. My wife works and, you know, she's an independent person. I'm very unhappy with that phrase because that's a quintessentially unentrepreneurial phrase in my mind. That's the core of the gender divide in this country. It's not that we expect our men today to be genuinely respectful about the ambitions of the women they're with, but we expect them just to tolerate it. The act of toleration itself is enough for us. Toleration has become our, benchmark. That men are able to tolerate is enough. That's the great progressive move. It's quintessentially unentrepreneurial. I'll tell you why. Because you can talk about entrepreneurship all your life. If 50% of your population does not get an access to even work, or is too scared perhaps to work on certain hours of the day like they are in Delhi, I mean, you can talk about GDP and all of that for the rest of your life and nothing will change. That's why gender is core to entrepreneurship. Race is core to entrepreneurship. Class is core to entrepreneurship. None of these issues we discuss in our business schools. None of these issues we discuss in the hundreds of roundtables and panels that I attend. These are the issues that are core to entrepreneurship. Let me give you a story about an entrepreneur. In my last book, I wrote about this entrepreneur called Gauri Singh, who in Gurgaon runs this company called the Maids Company, right? What does it do? We have very interesting, we're in a country where we still have the word servants, right? Deep within, unconsciously, like we sneak away and have a cigarette these days, we sneak away and say servant somewhere. Because deep within, that's our real core, right? These are the hypocrisies we hide deep within us. Yeah. So, let's talk about quote-unquote servants. What is a servant? And can the servant also be an entrepreneur? Think about that question. So when I went to meet Gauri Singh and I studied this company in detail, you know what it does? Its motto, so to speak, its spirit is embodied in the words, service, not servant. How does that change? Because in the Indian paradigm, when somebody comes to do domestic work for you, it's bonded labor. So you say, ठीक है, I need somebody वो झाड़ू पोछा करने के लिए चाहिए हमें, हाँ? So you hire somebody to clean the house. The moment they come in, you're like, कुत्ते को भी घुमा दो, right? You're like, कुत्ते को भी घुमा दो, पौधे में पानी दे दो, भैया आए हैं चाय बना दो, right? Why? Because in your mind you're thinking servants, you're not thinking service. Think about it, you don't do this to your driver anymore. If you did that mostly to your drivers these days, they would say, Tada, I'm joining Uber. Right? You don't do it to your drivers anymore, ladies and gentlemen. That's the spirit of entrepreneurship. You still do it with your servants. Why? Because you fundamentally believe in your head they don't have a choice. Choice changes everything. Choice is the game changer. Right? The moment you open up choice, it changes. So I went to meet these women who work for this company, right? And I spoke to them for a few days and I heard their stories. And at the end, I spoke to the entrepreneur concerned and I asked her, tell me, what really changes? Because the people who work in this company, they work on the principle of service. They are hired for a particular task, they wear a clean uniform in the morning, they go, they do their task, they go out. They have to have 1 day holiday every week. They have stipulated hours. It's not like, reh jao hamare saath, kabhi bhi, none of that nonsense. They have stipulated hours. They go, they work, they come out, right? So I asked this entrepreneur, what changes when you have a system like this, right? She said a very interesting thing. So I said, and I classically as a business journalist, I was like, so how much do the income rise? What's the delta of rise of income? I love jargon, they're deep within my heart. I'm a Bengali, I love jargon, If I could do a PhD, I would do it today. But, so she said, there is no delta of income rise that we need to be concerned about. And I said, what are you talking about? That's the fundamental thing. So she said, well, they do make more money, but that's an interesting point, but to me, not the core point. So I was like, what's the core point? She said, the core point is, after working in this new mindset for some time, their spines begin to straighten. Think about that imagery. Every employee of this company is a woman. They are usually abused so badly that the company has had to create 2 rooms on top of their office, because at any time, if their employee, so to speak, is beaten up, sometimes with cigarette butts on their body, and thrown out of their shanty homes in the middle of the night, there are 2 options that those women have in Gurgaon. Either most likely they will get gang raped that night, or they will find shelter. So the office has these 2 rooms where they quickly come and take shelter for the night because they are being beaten so badly at home. So what happens when these women get dignity of labor through entrepreneurship, their spines begin to straighten. Because from childhood, all that these women have ever faced, they have faced the world with a bent spine. Not one of you perhaps knows in this audience what it means to face the world every morning with a bent spine. And you tell me entrepreneurship is about bottom line? I refuse to believe that. I believe entrepreneurship is about the straightening of spines. If you can straighten spines, you will change the country. And hopefully you'll change the world. But let's begin, with the country. Let me give you another example. I went to a place called Vidarbh. Everybody knows Vidarbh. It's a drought-hit place. Farmers die. I went to a village in Vidarbh where the headman had, with just fixing the water supply, with just fixing how rainwater when it falls, how it will be stored, how it will be captured, just by doing that, has transformed the village over 10 years, and it's today the only village in India with 60 rupee millionaires in one village. Has anybody ever told you that in Vidarbh you have a village like this? No. Obviously they won't, because that's the point, right? Because these are not the stories we want to hear. Let me give you another example. Somebody asked me when the last budget was passed, what's the breakthrough idea? In Delhi, everybody's concerned with the breakthrough idea. You have to have a breakthrough idea at all. I don't know what is being broken through where, I have no idea, but they have to have a breakthrough idea all the time. So somebody asked me, what is the breakthrough idea of this budget? And I thought about it, and to me, the breakthrough idea of this budget is a tiny little announcement called the Mudra Bank, which, as of Business Standard this morning, has already given out small loans of 24,000 crore rupees to 3.7 million small businesses. But, and there's a big but, why do I think it's a breakthrough idea? Because if you look at the quote-unquote informal sector of our country, what is this informal sector? Who are these people? What annoys me most about business is this dehumanizing language. Where are the human beings in the informal sector, right? Who are these human beings who populate this informal sector? So if you study the informal sector, which has, by the way, in the last 25 years of liberalization, almost every year delivered more jobs than the organized sector, than all my friends who, are in Dalal Street. That sector, which has grown faster than the formal sector every single year, is populated by who? Most informal businesses in India are owned by lower castes, sort of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, basically deprived classes in our country. And some of the largest numbers of women are employed in the informal sector. Are you going to tell me that this is not entrepreneurship? It's only when you become a blue chip share, on the Sensex, that's entrepreneurship? Are you going to tell me that these millions of businesses which are populated by some of the most deprived people in our country are not examples of what India can achieve by entrepreneurship? If you do, then you're wrong. And I'm right. And I'm a journalist, so I'm always right? No. But that's the point. The point is, this is the force, this is the energy, this is what entrepreneurship means to me. And that's why I believe almost everything that you hate about India, perhaps there's an entrepreneur solving it. Let me go up now and go to Kashmir, right? Do you know that one of the best run banks in our country is run out of Kashmir? Did anybody, who knew that among this audience? Did anybody know that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically in an audience of about 1,000 people, 4. Why, and I want to leave you with this thought, why is it that of all the things we hear about Kashmir, we don't hear that one of the best run banks in the country of its size is from Kashmir? It's run by Kashmiris, it's owned by Kashmiris, its people are Kashmiris, the people it borrows money from are Kashmiris, the people it lends from to are Kashmiris. Everybody in that, and largely the bank only operates in Kashmir. That's their catchment area, so to speak. Why does nobody say that one of the best run banks in the country comes from Kashmir? Why? What's the agenda behind never talking about this? I don't want to spell out agendas here today, but I want you to think about it. What is the agenda of not saying that one of the most successful banks in the country comes from Kashmir? Who gains from this and who loses? About 5-7 years ago in Kashmir, in the Jammu and Kashmir Bank, one of the main downtown branches of the Jammu and Kashmir Bank was attacked by terrorists, right? And the whole building finally went up in flames. Almost till the time the building came down, there were employees, including the manager of that branch. You know what they were doing? They were taking out disk after disk and file after file and trying to get out so that none of the records are burnt. At a time when the whole building was full of terrorists and there was a gun battle going on with the army. You know why? I asked the manager in Kashmir, why did you do it? I mean, you could have been dead, you know that, right? I mean, who am I to teach you about death? You see death around you all the time. He said, look, the thing is, so many of these records are of people I know. They are my neighbor. They are my neighbor's neighbor. They are my relative's friend. They're my daughter's father. They're my son's, school teacher's brother. We operate in an ecosystem. And these are people we know. These are people we treasure. These are us. How can I allow all those documents to be burned down? This is a Kashmiri standing in Kashmir talking about risking his own life to save some bank records. Why is this a narrative that we never hear about Kashmir? Why? What prevents us from hearing this narrative? Why are we so scared of this narrative? There's more. I met this young lady in Kashmir called Afsa Jah, and she makes this wonderful thing. She makes Numda carpets. Numda is one of the old forms of making carpets in Kashmir. So when I met her, and she's a young lady, and I was very proud of her. She was going to Milan to show on a government scholarship, and I told her this is amazing. She said, but I still can't tell that I do this work to most of my family. I was like, why? She said, because traditionally, this kind of work was done by lower castes in Kashmir. Think about it. Even in Kashmir, in 2014, a young Muslim girl, such is the burden of history upon us, is still battling with some caste issues which are frankly baffling. But there it is. Such are the, we talk about, in the earlier session, we were talking about all the infrastructural hurdles to entrepreneurship. We were talking about all the laws and regulations. Where is the real hurdle to entrepreneurship, ladies and gentlemen? It's here. Here's all the battle. Here, this needs to change. This is the problem. Because the single biggest thing you can do for entrepreneurship, in this country is don't listen to your parents. Because from the day we are born in this country, we are told what to do. If I would have listened to my parents, I would have been today Class 2 officer, Southeastern Railway, with a pay scale of 36,800 rupees to 44,200 rupees, or something like that. And there's nothing wrong in that, if that's what you wanted to be. My father is a lifelong railway officer, and I'm really proud of him. But that's not what I really wanted to be. That's not what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to do other things. And that's the biggest challenge before entrepreneurship. There are more challenges. There are many more challenges. How many of you have heard of this man who created one of the world's cheapest sanitary napkins? Has anybody heard about it? Okay, several people have heard about it. Great. So I won't go into the whole story because obviously many of you may know the story. He was a villager who realized that, sanitary napkins were really needed, and he went and built a little machine that provides sanitary napkins. But there is a very interesting part of that story which I wanted to tell you. When he made those sanitary napkins, he couldn't test it anywhere, right? Because he couldn't, who would he tell, which woman would he approach to test it? So he would stand outside. There was a little college where a lot of women, during their menstruation period, would throw their sanitary napkins, and as always in India, somebody would dump it behind the college for a few days before it got clean. He would go and pick up pads from there and check what kind of absorption is happening, what is being used, whether it's good or bad. Then he needed to figure out, Arunachalam Muruganantham, that's his name, he needed to figure out what does it feel like to wear a sanitary napkin, right? But who would he ask? Who would he give his sanitary napkin to and say, would you please test it for me? Wear it for a few days when you're having your periods and see if it works or not, right? Who would he ask? So he actually wore it himself. He took goat's blood from a goat and put it in a little pouch and stuck it to his waist and let the blood trickle out and put the sanitary napkin on that and used to go around town wearing it to see if you can be mobile and still use it. You know why? And here's for me, the clincher. He had to do it because when he went to ask his wife that if she would test it for him, she went and told his mother, and between them they decided that if she did something like that, the people in the village would think it's crazy and the man is mad. So they refused to do it. Not just that, they said, if you do it yourself, we will leave you. And for many years, his mother and his wife refused to stay with him in the same village. Now tell me that the biggest problem to entrepreneurship in this country is taxation or GST. Yeah? Now tell me that. So that's entrepreneurship, ladies and gentlemen. That's the spirit of entrepreneurship. But there is more, as always there is. In Delhi, about 30-40 kilometers from Delhi, from the heart of Delhi, there is a little village called Nekpur. Neki in Hindi means doing good, goodness, right? There's a Hindi phrase, neki or pooch pooch, Why would I ask twice about doing good, right? So there's this village called Nekpur. Till about 2 years ago, that village had manual scavengers. People who actually, women, and always women, I mean, the worst offenders, always women. Women who would get up in the morning, carry human waste, shit essentially, in their hands and throw them away somewhere else. That's what they did 30 or 40 kilometers away from Delhi as late as 2-3 years ago. Until a bunch of students from a college in Delhi, from the Shriram College of Commerce in Delhi, went there and started an entrepreneurial project. They started an entrepreneurial project in teaching these women, and I love the sublime irony of this. They taught these women who nobody in the village would touch, who nobody in that village had touched in generations. They couldn't remember, when anybody else in their village had even touched them or accepted something from their hand. They taught those women to make what? To make detergents. I love the sublime irony of this. That those women, the manual scavengers, were taught to make detergents. And that detergent, which is called Neki, is now sold across North India. Those women are all detergent makers today. Each of those women today are detergent makers. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. In the 21st century, for generations, women who have only seen a world where nobody would even come near them or accept anything from their hands, today are proudly selling what? For crying out loud, detergent. I ask you, if this is not change, what is? If this is not entrepreneurship, what is? So I believe in the magic of entrepreneurship, ladies and gentlemen. I believe in the magic of entrepreneurship finally also because no longer, and even in the business that I am in, which is writing books, increasingly we need white men, and they're usually always white men to tell us if our work is good enough. That hurdle, ladies and gentlemen, we have crossed. We no longer need white men to tell us whether we are good enough. That's the magic of entrepreneurship. That's what has changed. That's why I believe in entrepreneurship. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I probably have a minute or so. I just want to conclude by telling you one last thing. I'm a practicing Hindu, and proudly so. And even saying that these days is controversial, and rightfully so in many ways. But I believe I'm a practicing Hindu in only the best traditions I've understood from my parents, from my grandparents. I'm a practicing Hindu. What does my Hinduism teach me, and why is it connected to entrepreneurship? I realized from my reading of Hinduism that there are 3 vital questions worth answering in this lifetime. Only 3. 3 questions. Who am I? What do I want? And what is my purpose? Right? Who am I? What do I want? And what is my purpose? And the greatest gurus have taught us that even getting to question 1 is enough for a lifetime. If you can just answer question 1, who am I? You're done for a lifetime. Right? But in all these questions, what is the most important aspect? That important aspect to me is a single letter, I. When I was growing up, and growing up in a communist state in the state of Bengal in Calcutta, my father was attacked and almost killed because he could not pay chada. For those who don't understand this Bengali word, it's like a hafta that you need to give to the party cadre, because whenever some festival happens or whatever, which is all through the year, every week, collection people would come from the party. The cadre would come, right? My father didn't have enough money because both my grandparents died after suffering for many, many years of cancer. So because my father couldn't pay it. And I realized through that experience that the state doesn't do anything for you. Because the state is nothing. The state is you and me. So to expect the state is exactly to expect a Messiah to come in and Superman to come in and solve things from us. The state is nothing but us. So to expect that one day miraculously the state will do things, it will never happen. There is only one place where real things can happen. And that's why I believe in entrepreneurship. And that one place is I. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sengupta. That was a wonderful speech.
Thanks.
House lights, please. And I'm going to start with that far corner this time. So if there are any hands up over there, now's a good time. There's one right over there. Could I please have that question taken?
Hi. So this might be a different perspective, but what do you have to say about the role of education in India today about entrepreneurship? Because myself, I'm my first year college student at CBIT, and what I feel is it's more like a job-oriented teaching. I'll give you a simple example. If we're being taught, for example, the C language, there's more importance on what kind of questions we should expect in an interview 4 years later than to actually kind of learn the language, experiment with it, and do things on your own. So what do you have to say about that?
No, obviously, most of the education in this country is rubbish. I mean, I didn't learn anything in journalism school. Nothing. Nothing. I mean, I have 2 degrees in journalism and I learned nothing. Yeah, it's the truth. I went to the best place in India for mass media. I don't want to name the institution at the moment. But everybody you see on TV also went there, including Shah Rukh Khan. But yeah, I didn't learn much there. So obviously education is rubbish. I mean, which is why I get so annoyed when politicians in this country get up and say, oh, the English language is not us. So this is the classic hypocrisy. You will send your children to the best English language schools. You will then use your illicit wealth to send them abroad. The rest of humanity should suffer. Why? Because we all have to be authentic. Because we're all monkeys in a cage, right? Because we have to be authentic. We are not human beings, we are monkeys. So we have to preserve. It's a romantic notion of poverty also, In Calcutta, we have this a lot, romantic, we are all poor. हम गरीब हैं, हम गरीब थे, और आगे जाके भी हम गरीब रहेंगे. It's that rubbish. Yeah, so absolutely, it's rubbish. I mean, it needs to be, education in this country basically needs to be bombed down and built afresh. If we could get a London fire going in education, it would be good. So yeah, it should be burned down to the ground and built afresh.
The gentleman in the light blue shirt here, someone could get him a mic.
Sir, 68 years after independence, we are not even able to manage a simple thing like traffic in an orderly manner. What is your thought on entrepreneurship in governance?
I have one thing that I really want governance and government to do in the whole ecosystem of entrepreneurship. Just one thing. And I think if they do one thing, everything will be solved. I don't have a whole list, I don't have like 10 points, whatever, nothing. One thing. What should government do to promote entrepreneurship? Get the hell out of the way. Just get out. Yeah, get out of the way. The problem is government. We are the most laden, overburdened with government country in the world. Get out of the way. If government gets out of the way, 50% of the problem. 2 things will solve India's problem. Government gets out of the way and you strategically bomb parts of Delhi. Everything will get solved. Yeah. Everything will get solved immediately. The problem is there. Yeah.
Great. Do we have a question from this side? Awfully quiet. None. Okay, I'm going to take from the lady in red here.
Hi, my name is Kavita. I'd like to know why you think women are scared to get into business or become entrepreneurs. Because I feel they are.
Do you think women are scared?
Yes.
Who do you think is to blame for that?
I don't know. Maybe the women themselves.
Yeah, but it's conditioning. It's
Yes. I
ages is
believe
ages
so
of
too.
conditioning. I mean, I was just telling her. I mean, forgive me for saying this. I'm a very blunt person. I was saying this to a Tamil friend of mine the other day in Chennai, who was saying exactly the same thing to me. Not enough women in entrepreneurship. I was like, yeah, but that's a problem, right? I mean, maybe not you, but so many Tamil men still think that every morning their coffee has to come from, hand plucked from like the coffee estates of Kurg and mixed with the milk of the Dhanvantari cow, which has to be milked only by the woman under the first ray of light, sunlight hitting the shore. That's the problem, boss. That's the problem. The problem starts there.
That's everywhere in the country, I believe.
And then finely ground, and unless that droplets of coffee falls at the right amount, it's rubbish.
So I still haven't got the answer.
The answer is men.
Men? Okay,
Yeah.
right, thank you.
The answer is men. I mean, I'll tell you from my own life history, and I'm not shy to say this. I think my mother was a brighter student than my father. And when they got married, my mother was doing much better than my father. Getting married and having me basically killed my mother's chances in life. She could never go back to work.
Are you married?
No, I'm not. Hopefully, when I get married, it'll be better. But after all these speeches, and I know this is getting recorded, even when I get married, all of this will be played back to me. This is what you said in Manthan in 2015. Look.
Gentleman in the striped white and blue shirt, if someone could pass him a mic.
So Narendra Thane, good talk. Congrats. I just wanted, is there any difference you visited in the different countries, the entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
the social barriers in the upcoming developing countries or underdeveloped countries and developed countries?
Yeah, but there's a huge, vast difference, right? I mean, depending on, it's very difficult to generalize about this, but which countries are you talking about then needs to be? I mean, India compared to what? Obviously, India compared to Pakistan, yeah, we have more entrepreneurs. But I mean, but that's not much of a comparison.
Cultural barriers in the developed countries like US or BRICS or
But
underdeveloped countries.
Look, I mean, for all that we say about American entrepreneurship, for all that we say about it, and for American capitalism, even in 2015 in America, we are still talking about whether women get equal pay compared to men. One of the greatest newspapers in the world had their editor leave. I don't want to name the newspaper, but had their editor, woman, the first woman editor, leave because she realized she wasn't getting paid as much as her predecessor, who was a man, and what he was getting. This is in the world's greatest, most progressive, most powerful newspaper brand. In America, at the heart of capitalism. I mean, what are we talking about? So these things are so deep-seated, and so the rot is so deep that it's a long haul.
No,
A lady, yes, ma'am.
We have 2 more questions we can take.
Could somebody get a mic to the lady? Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
Ma'am, right
here.
beside you. Yeah.
Hi, love the way you spoke.
Thank you.
And have a question for you. You never talked about the risk of being an entrepreneur. The
Yeah.
first step that one takes.
Yeah.
What is your understanding of that?
Yeah, so I was talking about the risk only when I spoke about not listening to your parents, right? Because that's risk number 1. It begins with that risk. So you ignore that risk. So family, I mean, I'm a big believer in family, but family is the biggest risk of entrepreneurship in this country. Family holds us back. Let's be really clear and let's be honest. Family, yes, sometimes family might aid and assist, but largely family holds us back in this country as far as entrepreneurship and taking risk is concerned, especially for women. This is especially true for women. Men, fir bhi, some support comes here, there, wherever. But for women, the biggest hurdle is family. And it's not politically correct to say these things, but I'm not a politically correct guy, so it's fine.
I'm going to take some questions from this side. The man back there in the striped shirt. Yes.
I acknowledge what all you say heartfully. Pretty much, I'm on the same journey which you are. But I have a question.
Are you married?
Yes.
Well done.
I have a question. The question is, we often hear, probably many people here would probably go
Mic
and...
closer to you. I can't understand what you're saying.
Probably many people here, after this session, will go and resign their job and start doing business. Probably. But...
You think?
Probably.
I doubt it.
Probably. So, I've seen people reading books, change in 30 days, nothing is impossible, you can do everything. I've seen people reading, and I've seen people burning their fingers and, squandering money, hard-earned money, which they have earned, which their parents have earned. Yes, I understand passion, I understand desire, I understand, straight spine, I understand independence, but the kind of education, the kind of abilities which are needed, right? Because of lack of those things, I have seen people suffering. I
No,
myself
but
have
why?
stopped.
So let's ask a deeper question. I got what you're saying, but
Yeah.
why? Why is there this hesitation? Let's address it. Let's ask one more layer of question. Of course there is a hesitation. Of course there are hurdles. Of course all that is there. But why? Because we don't celebrate failure in this country. Because from the day we are born, we are told we are in a competition. We are competing every damn day of our life. That's the problem. There is no chance in this country to fail. The biggest thing about entrepreneurship is that you will fail. Of course you will fail. And the learnings that you get from every failure strengthens you as an entrepreneurship. But that is entrepreneurship. But if you don't celebrate failure, how will you create an ecosystem of success?
I understand, getting 0 marks failure is accepted, but minus 50 lakhs in 6 months, minus 1 crore in 1 year, I cannot celebrate that kind of failure. It's difficult.
So I couldn't even understand what you said. You said something about 6 months.
Getting 0 marks in examination, that failure can be celebrated. But minus 50 lakhs in 6 months, loss or 1 crore in 1 year cannot be celebrated easily.
My friend, there was a lot of talk about IT here. Let me tell you, the bubble that's going to burst in the next few months, you will see a lot of people get out of much more than 50 lakhs. Please, let's be clear. As a journalist, let me, play the devil's advocate. There is a bubble which will burst. It's all coming, right? And let a few more quarters go through. Let the bubble burst. What we call consolidation now, it's all going to be bubble burst. Wait and watch.
Awesome.
So you will see more than 50 lakhs going. a lot of people would have got out with more than.
Awesome, but I
Can
enjoyed.
we give somebody else a chance also? We can talk after
Thank
this.
you very
I
much.
enjoyed hearing you. Yeah,
Let's-
thank
Thank
you.
you. I'm going to take one last question from that gentleman in blue. Lots of blue today.
I would have ideally preferred another lady, but anyway.
I
Go ahead,
prefer
sir. Go
one
ahead.
too.
Go ahead. You have the mic. that's entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
आपको mic मिल गया तो बस ठीक
Yeah,
है.
thank you. It was really energizing.
बताइए,
Yeah,
बताइए.
my doubt is why is there an age limit for entrepreneurship?
Who says there's an age limit for entrepreneurship?
Like myself, I face myself.
But then that's your. The
It's
problem
like
is.
I was not allowed because I'm 23.
But that's inside
It's like
you.
I
na?
should
mean-
have 25, something like that. Why is there, age
But-
limit everywhere?
Yeah, but that inhibition is in your head. That's what I'm saying. In my head, I can think I'm Tom Cruise also, but that doesn't mean anything. So this inhibition is in your head, so it's up to you to take it out. So if you think there is a hurdle, there is a hurdle. Look at Raghav Behel, who built, Network 18, one of the most successful chain of TV channels. At the age of 50-something, he started a new journey of entrepreneurship. Now, you can argue he has money, he doesn't have money, that's a different thing.
So should I wait?
No, you should start. You should have started yesterday.
Because I already worked for one
See, this is
month.
the thing. If you were a true
I can't
entrepreneur,
do job.
if you were a true entrepreneur, you would have started yesterday.
The
Thank
lady
you.
in the pink sari just next to you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, the microphone is just coming to you, ma'am. Just give it a moment. Can somebody get a...
Where-
there's a lady there. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
So, do you think English is very essential for entrepreneurship?
Depends on what you're
Without
doing.
English, doesn't
No,
you can't
depends
do
on-
that.
No, depends on what
And
you're...
second question is, only entrepreneurship is the one which can, make our livelihood. Are there not other professions?
No, there is, but
What
I choose to
feel
talk about
is,
entrepreneurship,
No,
so-
everybody's aspirations are different. Some people
Yeah.
go in that line.
Sure.
So, if business people are there where the parents encourage the students, their children in business. That is a different, but everybody cannot be an entrepreneur. And there will be different types of mentalities will be there. So where you take up other professions, not only for earning money, for satisfaction. So only business is the only thing which can survive. Are
Ma'am,
there
can
not
I-
any other professions?
Can I just say this? Can I just say this, ma'am? I absolutely love you. What you just said, my mother tells me every day. I love you. I absolutely love you. I heard the voice of my mother in you.
The lady up front here.
In Calcutta, we used to hear this a lot. That, dhanda is for the Marwadis. We are Bhodro loks, we don't do dhanda. So the voice of my mum, I mean, I love you, ma'am. I would love to talk to you after this. But yeah, sure. I mean, there are other ways. But, I chose to talk about entrepreneurship. Sure, but people should do whatever they feel like.
First of all, it was here.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Ma'am,
Your talk.
hold your microphone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
my question is, what is your take on reservation?
What is my take on reservation?
Yeah, I mean,
Next, you'll be asking me what is my take on Narendra Modi. That's it.
no, I wouldn't. I mean, independence के इतने सालों बाद भी we are stuck there still. I
No,
mean,
look, I'll tell you what I think of a reservation. Let me tell you what I
Whereas-
think of reservation. Look, it's very simple. Everything becomes an unnecessary battle in this country. If you really study the issue, there might be places where genuinely reservation has helped. Wait, hold on. Let me finish. Just one moment. So, there might be places, sure, and I don't dispute it. There might be places, there might not be places. But the fact is, after so many years of applying reservation, right, in 2015, we are still talking about reservation.
not
Something
just
would have gone
talking,
wrong somewhere.
Practicing it very badly.
Sorry?
Not just talking about it, also practicing it.
Correct, right. But so clearly the problem hasn't got solved. That much you'll admit.
Not at all.
That after all these years of reservations, clearly the problem hasn't got resolved. That's why we're still talking about it and practicing it and whatever, right? Right? Yeah. People like me only say, please consider that there are other methodologies to solve the same problem. Because reservation essentially is about caste, and the caste problem, no one is saying immediately banish every reservation. No one is saying that. Maybe in some places some things are, valid. But there are many other ways, and the free market offers a very powerful opportunity to solve some of these problems if applied properly. That's all.
But then doesn't it become very unfair, when a person who just
It
scores
depends,
10,
ma'am. It depends when you're talking about. I mean, then you have to get into specifics. It's unfair where, for who.
I would say, yeah. So,
I think
my
that's a
So,
long
and I've also
conversation
completely
for
run out
another
of time. I've really completely run out of time. So I'm happy to talk to anybody after the session. But
Sure.
thanks very much for listening to me. And I hope I wasn't too blunt.
Thank you very much for your time.